In today's episode, we're going to talk about pricing a home correctly. How do you nail the price on a new listing that's coming to market? So we're going to talk about that and also some unique pricing situations in the upcoming episode. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Agent Bridge podcast. I'm Brandon Baca, Marine Corps veteran and 15-year realtor, broker, and coach.
And I'm Arl Hessen. I'm a Fortune 500 C-suite executive, real estate investor, and entrepreneur.
The Agent Bridge is the proven path to real estate success without the burnout. Episode 38, we're going to talk about nailing the home price, how to get a correct home price. There's a lot of confusion around comps and how to price correctly. And so we're going to talk about all that today, and especially as we get into those unique properties. But as always, we ask that you please like the episode and subscribe to the Agent Bridge, whether you listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Please leave a comment, leave a rating. That helps us get this out to more people and increases our visibility to the public. So we appreciate everything you guys do, and we appreciate you guys that have been followers of ours for some time. Okay, let's talk about market update, which, as I recall, unless something has changed, everything's pretty much just moving at a snail's pace in terms of interest rates and change in the market. Rather.
Yeah, early last week was kind of rough. I was out of the country. Friday was the best lock day I have seen in like at least 45 days. Mm-hmm. I was calling clients right and left, trying to get them locked. It was a great day. Monday opened and it was, kind of flat. To yesterday was a little better. Today, even better yet. So
good.
I think things are trending in the right direction. They're going that way very slowly, though. I mean, when I say better, not much different than Friday. Friday was like a great day. The jobs report came back. Everything looked kind of a little bit below forecast, which is what we needed for the rates to start to come back down. I think inflation's getting under control. There are a few more hikes that are going to occur throughout the remainder of the year, but I think we're getting to the end of the hikes in the next, couple sessions here. And then, you have to believe it's all downhill from there.
Let's hope. Yeah. And I don't think we're going to see, I could be wrong. I don't think we're going to see any massive changes in terms of interest rates. We're not going to drop to 4 or 3 or something like that. We just need to get into the 5s, I think, to kind of get the market back up and running.
And also remember that even if there's a hike, that doesn't necessarily mean like 25 basis point hike doesn't necessarily mean 25 basis points increase in the rate, because a lot of that gets baked in. Like we already know that they're going to do another hike. The rates are already kind of adjusting for that. So just because there's hikes, again, doesn't necessarily mean rates are going to continue to shoot up. I would have to believe we wouldn't see any more major upticks. I mean, they fluctuate a lot right now. It's up and down, daily. I have never in my career seen this big of a swing for locking during any given day. Like there might be a time where someone's paying, $10,000 for points at 9 a.m. and then paying $16,000 for the same amount of points by 3 p.m. So it's crazy.
That is crazy.
It's just wild, but you have to believe we're kind of near the top, and then it'll head down. And like Brandon said, I don't see it heading down to 4, so don't get your hopes up. But right now 5.5 looks great.
Well, yeah, that, and also some data came out yesterday. Year over year, we're actually seeing an increase in number of condos sold. So, which is a microcosm or basically shows you that entry level is still strong, that things are turning over in that marketplace. So again, your massive big properties may be moving a little bit more slowly if you've got listings out there, but your entry price point, if they're priced correctly, will go fast.
Yeah. And be ready, agents, be ready, because if there's been a lot of pent up, I need to sell or I want to move, the interest rates are too high, so I'm not going to move right now. And if they go down to 5.5, 5.25, something like that, there's going to be a lot of people that are like, I'm ready, and I'm gonna list, and just be there. Continue to stay in touch with your clients or the people that are in your pipeline. Yep. It's coming. It might be 6 to 12 more months, but as we know, sometimes it takes 6 months of back and forth before you get the client. So now's the time.
Stay on top of it. Stay on top of your marketing. Stay on top of your social media. Do the things that you should. All right. Let's go into our content here, which the overarching theme is for nailing the home price is that pricing a home is more about perception than it is science or data. And we're going to get into what that actually means. But, when I'm talking to people, people typically want to, when they're pricing or when they're going through comps, it's almost like they're like, well, they're trying to be too specific with their comps. They're trying to play appraiser. And, one of the things that I want to say is that appraisers, especially in a purchase scenario, they're trying to match the value of the price you sold for. They're not so they're not dictating what the value of the home is. They're verifying what the value of the home is, or they're verifying the sales price. So that changes things. That doesn't mean you can sell something, or basically put something on the market that's extremely high. But as we saw during this sort of COVID era, was a house will sell for what someone else is willing to pay for it. So when you got a cash offer, guess what? The appraisal is irrelevant. Mm-hmm. And so we saw house prices increase because people were not dependent upon the appraisal. So does that mean that house wasn't worth that amount? No, because somebody paid for it, so it was worth it. So it's just important to understand that, this is really it's a supply and demand thing. The appraiser is there to verify the value for the bank, for the person that's lending them the money. And so when you look at it, it is not a science or data driven as much as it is perception of value in the marketplace. That's why house prices go up. Because if it was only science or data driven, then house prices would never move. Yep. Right? You would only use past data to do future data, and then you couldn't go up on the price. So obviously there's something that moves it up, and that is supply, demand, the value of that home goes up, and that appraiser is verifying the value to the bank. And the other thing that comes into play is the client that's buying the house. Do they have the, credit score and enough down payment? Because sometimes they're like, banks will waive the appraisal.
Oh yeah, that happens quite a bit. It depends on the amount of data they have in any given area, but that happens a fair amount. I would say, especially right now, because we've had so many frequent home sales, I would say 30 to 40% of the time I get an appraisal waiver.
Yeah.
Pretty high.
So that goes to show you that something is worth what somebody's willing. But basically they're basing that off of the data that they're seeing. But again, a lot of that weighs into, hey, is this person going to be able to make the payments year after year? And if they got good credit score and enough down payment, it's going to be typically they're going to use the past from that person's financial scenario to determine the future.
But I would say that this topic is more important today than it was in COVID.
No question.
COVID, anything, it would sell anywhere. It didn't matter. Mm-hmm. Now, the only properties in our market or any markets we work in that are sitting are the houses that are not priced appropriately.
That's correct.
It's too high if it's sitting more than there's too much demand. And the inventory is too low. So if it's sitting 60, 90, 120 days, it's too high.
Yeah, that's consistently the thing that we're running into in this sort of newer market, in this post-COVID market, is people just making things up in terms of or they maybe made decisions that where they were thinking where the trend was going really strong. So like, well, it's going to be 20% year over year increase in value. And well, this year, maybe it's not 20, but it's 6, which is still good. Or maybe it's 4, which is still good, but it's not what it was. And so people just have this like pie in the sky mentality of what their house should sell for. So most of the stuff that we see out there in the market that is sitting is simply due to overprice.
Yeah. And I would say that before we jump into the content, find someone that is a peer of yours that you can bounce ideas off of, because we do this, you never stop doing that. Like no. My wife was listing a property and Brandon and I bounced an idea off each other. Like, hey, what would you list here? He's done the same for me when he's gone to list, or his daughter maybe goes to list. We just bounce ideas off each other just to get another opinion, because it's not a perfect science.
No,
I mean, you want to nail it, you want to get it right, but at the same time, it's like, it could go in a pretty big window sometimes, depending on the price of property.
So yeah, the important thing to understand again is that you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You don't have a crystal ball. We know what has happened in the past, and we have some data to draw from. but there are a lot of factors that weigh into the value of that property. So we'll talk about that. So what I say is, when you first start pulling comps for a neighborhood, or we're just going to speak to just a general suburban or even an urban type neighborhood where you've got similar houses, right? So you don't have 5,000 and 2,000 and 4,200 and 1,500 square feet right next to each other. Okay. So we're going to talk about just a standard neighborhood. That's going to be our general sort of baseline that we're going to start with today. Okay. And most agents get too specific before they initiate their search, which could result in not enough visibility in what's going in the trends that are in the neighborhood, or even in the normal size of a property, or normal level of remodel for that particular neighborhood. So what I'm doing, when I'm pulling comps, is I go broad before I go narrow.
I do the same thing. So actually, I'll just use the recent example about a house that my wife was listing. Is because it was somewhat unique in the sense that it was on a 1 acre lot in a town that doesn't have a lot of inventory because it's a smaller town in our state. But I started with show me everything priced within like a $500,000 window of what I was looking at in the town on 1 acre there. Yeah. So and I knew that the inventory would be probably less than 10 homes in that whole town. Yeah. That's before I ever looked at the neighborhood that I knew had recent sales. I just wanted to show me Thompson Station, Tennessee, 1 acre within a $500,000 window of what I thought it was going to list at. Yeah. And that's where I started.
That's what you do. And so like in a neighborhood deal, I want to know all the neighborhood. How many 4 bedrooms are there? How many 3 bedrooms are there? Are there any 5 bedrooms? What's the typical square footage? So I want to know broad before I go narrow. Because if you go, I want 3-2 within 200 square feet plus or minus. Because some real estate agent just took a class on appraisal, and so they're trying to run very very specific guidelines. It's like, well, let's find out what's going on in the neighborhood first and what the trend is. Because I remember this neighborhood in Yukon, Oklahoma, that was a group of houses that was built in the 80s. And then it took a 20-year break, and then there was a group of houses that were built in the 2000s. Yeah. So you've got to pull the whole neighborhood to find out what's going on. You're like, okay, why are there 80s houses and 2000s houses?
Yeah, those are always a little tougher, just right? Because it's the competition is odd.
Well, right, and you're not going to comp that, or you're not going to comp the 80s house off the 2000s house. And then we also had a situation. Well, actually, we'll push pause on that. We'll come back to that later. So let's go back. So again, go broad, go for the whole neighborhood. Or like you said, if you've got maybe a luxury property, you want to go, 1 acre in that particular, in a smaller town, you want to go broad before you go narrow.
And the other thing here too is we're in a unique time in the sense that inventory is so low, you may not have anything in the neighborhood that's for sale or has sold recently. The inventory is just ultra low right now. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to go broad to start and then work your way in to see how specific you can get.
Yep. Okay. And the other thing you're going to look at is days on market, average days on market for the neighborhood, which houses sold quickly, which houses took a little bit longer. And then you can basically, if you're looking at those trends, you can start to see why. Say, well, this one did 3 price drops before they finally got to their eventual sales price. And that's why it took 45 days, because they started too high.
Yeah. Newsflash, probably all the ones that sold quickly were priced appropriately.
Yeah, amazing. Who could imagine? And then the other thing I'm looking at is there should be a SP/SF, which means sold price per square foot. The LP is list price per square foot. The SP is sold price per square foot. So I'm looking at sold price per square foot in that particular neighborhoods to see if I can identify trends for the square footage sales price. Now, this is really controversial because there are lots of people who say, well, it has nothing to do with the price per square foot. Well, wrong. Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, any sort of informed client is going to be looking at that. They're going to be like, well, why am I paying $215 a square foot when this other one is $205 a square foot?
Yeah. Especially around us where you have neighborhoods that might have a wild variation in square footage. So it is important to boil it down to what it sold for per square foot.
Yeah. So I'm not saying it's everything that matters, but it is a big part of what matters. And so some people who get in the weeds would disagree with that, but I can tell you it's like, no, because your clients aren't going, they're not going to be thinking like an appraiser. They're going to be thinking about as a consumer, and they're going to be looking at the price per square foot and based on the remodel. And you need to have justification if you're in the price per square foot for your sales price. So it's like, okay, well, do they remodel the bedrooms and bathrooms and or kitchen or whatever? Okay, so yes, price per square foot does matter, and it is a major indicator or a major determining factor in your client's perception of the house, perception of the value of the house. Okay, number 2, make sure your price meets your condition. Okay, when price and condition meet, the house will sell. So look at the condition of, if you're pulling comps in the neighborhood, you need to look at the condition of similar properties. Okay, so do they have upgraded bedrooms, bathrooms, or mostly bathrooms, kitchens, so on and so forth, right? Those are kind of your major portions of remodel is, because bedrooms is for, it's like to upgrade a bedroom is paint and carpet, right?
Yeah.
But if you're upgrading a kitchen, we're actually redoing finishes and countertops and potentially cabinets and, all sorts of stuff, right? Flooring. So that's where, a lot of your added value is. So if your house, like when you're pricing your particular listing, if there's one that's sold top of market for $215 a square foot, but it's got remodeled master bath, remodeled bathrooms and a remodeled kitchen, you're not going to be able to get that same price per square foot.
Nope.
Or same value for the property because you don't have those upgrades. So all that, the condition is incredibly important to determine if yours is comparable there. And so your clients might be like, well, Bill sold his house down the street. Well, Bill had a remodeled kitchen.
That's a frank conversation you need to have with your sellers is they need to understand the realistic condition of their home. Mm-hmm. You need to be honest with them. This is not the time to sugarcoat it. It's honesty, and you're not trying to be rude, but you need to be honest about the condition of the home, and they need to understand that.
Yeah, I break it down into, excellent, good, average, poor. Okay. So when I'm talking to a client, I said, based on other properties in this area, your house fits in the average category. Right? To make it into the excellent category, we would need to do these 3 things.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to do those 3 things, we can get this top value.
I've used the KBV thing before. Like, have you ever gone to sell a car and they're like, the cars sit in these like excellent, good, fair buckets. And you always say like, hey, only 2% of used cars are excellent.
Yes.
And so it's like, all right, only 2% of homes are excellent at 20 years old. So
that's right.
Like you can get there, but it would take a big investment that you're probably not willing to make when you're selling your home. So let's focus on what makes it like solidly good.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you may not want to put the money into the home before you sell it. Sometimes you may want to offer a concession up front, like, hey, the buyers may want to replace their own carpet, but I'll offer a carpet allowance or something like that. But you still need to be honest about where the carpet is.
Well, paint and carpet are going to be your cheapest ways to get a ton more value out of your house. But you're right. I mean, there was probably a time in the last, in my real estate career where I would have said, hey, let's do a kitchen remodel. Let's put new backsplash, put new countertops, and paint these white. Okay. Right. I may have done that. Right now, I probably am not, because that's going to delay the sale of the property by anywhere from 2 to 6 months, depending on available contractors.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy out there right now with finding people to do work. And the communication is suffering because of that. And so in any of the situations where we've worked with contractors, and this isn't to knock contractors, it's just they're so busy and so, strung out, it's hard to get things done in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah, I find people usually fall in 2 categories. It's like black or white. It's I'm not doing anything. I want to sell it as is. I'm not touching this property before I sell it. Or they go overboard and they do like way more than is necessary to get the house sold. And then oftentimes a buyer is going to come in, would have bought it anyway, and then also change what you've already done. Yeah.
But there are some things that you can do is like, hey, we can take this from average to good.
Absolutely.
With paint and carpet.
Yeah.
Or if we've got, I've had situations where it might be a luxury property and they kind of had like maybe one weird room or one weird, like maybe their fireplace needed to be remodeled to get it up. We can just, maybe if it's a couple of things that would increase the value of the property, I will recommend them. But most of the time we're just basically trying to get to the top of that, category. So we're going from, make it what you said, solidly good. And then you're right. The people who are in excellent condition, you're going to know from the second you walk in the door.
Yeah.
It's very rare.
It's extremely rare because it takes a pretty large level of effort throughout the years of keeping up that home. It's not something that you just go in and unless you've done a complete remodel, it's like you've kept up with paint and you've kept up with flooring and you've replaced carpets along the way and done this and done that. And just the house itself is just in immaculate condition. It's rare.
Yeah. You're basically doing a project all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to determine, basically the condition, the level of remodel that's done in the neighborhood, what's the normal thing that people have done. If it's at a 30 or 40-year-old neighborhood, most people will have remodeled their kitchens or redone paint and carpet, so on and so forth. So what's the level of remodel that's normal? And then how much does the lack of repairs or remodels hurt the value of the home? And so what I say is like, specifically with paint and carpet, okay, because these two things can really determine, the emotion of somebody walking in your house, because people don't want to walk into a project. And this is the thing that is just real. Like people will say, well, I'll do a little bit of a fixer-upper. No. They don't want that. As many times as I've heard that, most of the times those people just end up buying a house that's done.
Newer. Yeah.
It's newer.
I know.
Isn't that funny? Like, yeah, we don't mind doing a little work on it. Like,
yeah.
Yes, you do. Right.
Yeah.
You just want to, and here's the thing is people go, well, because everybody in their life has told them, hey, when you walk into the right house, you're going to know it. Well, houses are largely very similar, right? Especially in your neighborhood. It's like 4 different floor plans times 100 houses, right? So it's like, okay, well, basically what they're feeling is that it feels newer because it's painted. There's fresh paint, fresh carpet.
Yeah, the vast majority of people want move-in ready,
right?
Even if they say they don't.
That's right. So what I tell people is like with the paint and carpet, if you don't do paint and carpet when you're selling your house, it counts off the price twice. So let's say it's $5,000 to repaint the house. Well, it's going to cost you $10,000 of value on your property.
Yeah.
Or if it's $5,000 to redo the carpet, it's going to cost you $10,000 because of people's perception of the value and then walking in and going. So the people who walk in and like, yeah, I'll redo the paint and carpet. They want a good deal. So it's just basically if you don't do those things, it's going to cost double.
Yeah, it's almost like they're counting the $5,000 in carpet and the $5,000 in headache, and they're like, "All right, it's $10,000."
That's right. Okay, not all repairs. Let's see, we're still on number 2. Yeah, not all repairs and upgrades increase the value. Okay, so which ones do and which ones don't?
And this list is going to be like your windows, your HVAC, your new roof, and new driveway. What I'll say about that though is that they can set the house apart. So while they don't necessarily increase the value, if you're in a 20-year-old neighborhood and some houses have new roof, new HVAC, some houses don't, it's going to set it apart. So it's not like it's not important to do. I wouldn't necessarily go out and replace HVAC that's working, but if it's done, it could help.
Yeah, but there are some people who come and they go, well, I just put $10,000 into my air conditioning, so my house is worth $10,000 more than everybody else's.
Not the case.
No. Now, I'm not saying, like we said, it's not that we're not saying it doesn't make the house more sellable or more desirable, but it's not a dollar for dollar deal.
If it's already done, if somebody just replaced the roof or replaced the HVAC because it went out last year, definitely call attention to that because it's important, but it's just not going to make it worth X amount of dollars more.
Yeah, it's not a dollar for dollar upgrade. Okay. So which ones do? These actually could very well be a dollar for dollar upgrade, which is a kitchen remodel, bathroom remodel, putting some money into the landscaping, right? So those things will actually increase the value of the home because frankly, what they're doing is increasing emotional value because again, an air conditioning, and this is kind of the sort of weird thing about pricing homes. because it is more here. The reality of it is prices sell on, or houses sell on emotion, not science, not data. They sell on emotion. So the things that make people feel better about the home are the things that are going to add value. The things that are sort of invisible probably won't. So like an air conditioning, you don't see it.
Yeah. I mean, and another one's like, you walk into something and you expect it to be working. Like you expect HVAC to work.
Yeah.
So the fact that you put a new HVAC in, fine. Is it because it didn't work before? Because that's a problem.
You did what you're supposed to do.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So yes, so kitchen, bathroom, landscaping, again, carpet and paint can kind of be a toss up. Pools, swimming pools, they're about 50% of the value of the pool if the client wants it. It could be a negative value on the home because the client may not want a pool at all.
Yeah.
Let's say if they have small children, they don't want to worry about it, then basically it's worth nothing to them. They just as well fill it in. So when someone's putting in a pool, I go, hey, listen, as your real estate agent, you need to do this because you want to do it, not because it's going to add value to your home.
Yeah. COVID kind of flipped the script on pools in our market a little bit. Everybody wanted one because they were stuck at home and things like that. But in general, I would say a lot of times they really divide the attention on a house because some people don't want to deal with them. Some people think they're a liability. Some people think that they're just a money sink, which they are.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of times that people will see, oh, they have a pool, I'm out. I'm not even going to come look. So,
right. That's exactly right.
And some people say, I've got to have a pool. I
have to. Yeah. The other thing is like 1 to 3 acres of land. I mean, until you start getting into like usable land for agricultural use, or they have a specific plan for it, or they have horses or something like that, it generally is not going to necessarily add value to the home. So, you've got, somebody says, well, I've got 2 acres. Okay. If somebody wants it, great. But if somebody goes, I don't want to mow that much land, then it's worth nothing. So it really, where I see land come into value is, or come to be valuable, is when it has use, when that land has use. The other thing is like rural properties, because I get a ton of questions from agents about, oh, well, I've got this house and there are no comps because it's out in a rural property in the middle of nowhere. Okay, so how do you comp that? And so basically what I do, again, go broad. This is what I say is like, listen, first, just comp similar houses, size of houses in that county or in that town. Okay, don't worry about the land. Just comp the size of houses. Then comp land. Okay, so if it's a house that's got 10 acres, comp how much is land going for in that county or in that town. Then I add those two together.
Yeah.
So that's how you kind of come up with those rural property value, or at least general value, because you're not going to have like 30 comps of 2,500 square foot houses with 10 acres of land. It's going to be very rare. So you basically want to separate those two things out.
The thing I would say about 1 to 3 acres is all it does is put you in basically a bracket. So people who are looking for 1 to 3 acres, they're going to be looking for 1 to 3 acres. So your competition is in the 1 to 3 acre market, which is why I said at the beginning of this episode, I comped homes on an acre in that town, because that's my competition. If it has an acre, there's so few of those out there right now that it's not like somebody's going to be okay with a 0 lot line, but then may go buy an acre, because the two aren't in the same areas. They're not in the same school systems. They're not in the same neighborhoods. So that's all I'll say about that.
Yep. Okay. Number 3, make sure the house that you're selling fits the neighborhood that you're in. And I ran into this yesterday. I had a real estate agent reach out and said, hey, this particular builder builds in this neighborhood, and they build this level of home. And then this really good builder who has all the upgrades and the bells and whistles built a home in this average builder's neighborhood. So what happens to the value of my client's home? And I go, it goes down.
Yeah.
Right? If they were to pick up that house and put it in that neighborhood that has houses that fits the quality, that's one thing. But since you took that house and you put it around houses that aren't like it, it's got to go to the lowest common denominator. So you are the same thing. It's like if you got the biggest house in the neighborhood, you probably have heard this just proverbially. If you got the biggest house in the neighborhood, that's going to make it sell for less per square foot. So it's like you never want to have the biggest house in the neighborhood. You probably have heard that. Or if you have the smallest house in the neighborhood, that can make your price per square foot go up because people will be like, hey, I can get in X neighborhood for cheaper, for under 400,000 or 500,000. We in Oklahoma, there's a neighborhood called Nichols Hills, or it's actually a township called Nichols Hills. And there are some small houses in there that go for astronomical amounts of money per square foot because people just want to have a Nichols Hills address and they can get in for $500,000.
Yeah.
So just something to think about there. Smaller house is higher for price per square foot. Largest house in the neighborhood is going to be less per square foot. And the house needs to meet the neighborhood, the condition of the neighborhood and size. Okay. As far as like determining the price. Okay. So here's what's going to come up. You're going to run comps on a house and let's say it's, $412,000 is where you come up with comps. Where do you think you should price that house? I'm putting you on the spot.
I'm going at 400 because I like to go a little low.
Yes. That's exactly what I would do. I would actually go 399.9.
Yeah. Well, I don't love I've done it before, and my wife likes to do it as well. But and apparently you do. I don't love the 999.
Mm-hmm.
Just I know it's like a dollar perception thing in the brain, but people run searches on whole numbers, so I like to run the whole number.
Yeah,
but anyway, I 39. That's where you need to price. You need to price slightly below the comp, in my opinion.
Yes,
and it's way better to do that than slightly above.
But get to the bracket, right?
Get to the bracket.
Get to the bracket. So don't, if it's 408,750, because I've seen people do that. It's like they priced it at 408. So don't do that, right? Because you're going to get caught somewhere. It's like you're going to get more eyes on it if you price it at 400 than 408.
Yeah. So the reason why I don't it works both ways too. The reason why I don't love the 999s is, let's say that somebody's running a home search on 400 to 500,000 and you're priced at 399,999. You missed it. If somebody is searching for 300 to 400,000, you're in there. But like, again, people run whole number searches. So you're going to miss it by $1 if somebody's running 400 to 500,000. Now a good agent's going to run 20,000 either side of it just to catch that. So it's kind of a rare thing to even worry about. But anyway, price slightly low is the key to this discussion.
By the way, speaking of that, on the buy side, if you're the agent, when that client tells you their price range, you need to go north of it appropriately. Like you said, 20, depending on the price range, right? If we're in 150, you need to go north of it about $10,000. If you're in 400 to 500, you need to go north probably 25 to 50,000.
Yeah,
because the way people's psychology works, and this is a little bit of a rabbit trail, but the way people's psychology works is they start shopping in that price range and they're discontent.
Yeah,
because their expectation doesn't meet what they thought, and so what they're going to do, they're more likely to raise the price than lower their expectation.
Yeah. And you see it on HGTV shows and everything else. The first home they show them is like way above their price point. It has all the boxes ticked because they know that what they said they want for the price they want to pay is not available. So most of the time people end up going a little higher. Run your searches appropriately on either side. One, so you can catch all the properties that might be 999ing you. But two, just so that you have everything available. And you also never know like what the situation a home seller's in. Like they may be priced inappropriately. So they may be priced wrong, and they may offer concessions and bring you back to your price point. So definitely.
I learned that lesson the hard way, by the way. I had a client, she was searching in let's say 350 was her top. She goes, I need houses between 300 and 350, whatever. And she came to me a couple of weeks later upset. And I said, what's wrong? And she goes, well, there was the perfect house and it came up for 360 and you didn't tell me about it. And I said, well, I ran it at 350 like you said. She's like, well, I need to know about, it's like, you should have told me as a realtor that house came available. So one of two things could happen. I could have gone, well, I'm upset because I'm just trying to do what my client told me to do. Or the other thing is like, I can get wise to this and realize that's just the psychology of people.
Yeah.
So go north. And what I'll even tell people is like, okay, great. They'll say, hey, we've got a hard stop at 350. We're not going to go above that. And I'll go, no problem. I'm going to kick it up to 375. I said, just in case, so you can keep in touch with houses that might become available that might be willing to negotiate to under the 350 mark, or that might have overpriced, and then they could come down over time, and you can see those as well.
Yep.
And they end up buying it.
I always go both sides, no matter what.
Yeah. Okay. And number 5, you never know until you get it on the market. Okay. So you don't know the value of that listing until you get it on the market. So like I said earlier, you don't have a crystal ball. You don't know what's going to happen in the future, and you don't know, there might be something that you hadn't thought about that's making that property less valuable that you just may not have thought about it. I'm trying to think of an example of that, but let's say it was, I don't know.
The 1 acres situation, there may not be many buyers out there looking for a home on 1 acre right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it may take a little longer, or, the fact that you said that you were going to give a carpet allowance, somebody may have wanted to walk into not a project. So you just never know. Like and sometimes you might find just the right buyer that was looking for an acre and didn't mind to replace the carpet. You just, it works both ways.
Yep. So, yeah, when you're going to start looking for market feedback, and you need to set that up right with your clients, basically to understand that, hey, when price and condition match, the house will sell. And the 2 things that we have to determine if we're hitting the right place on the market is showings and offers, right? Are we getting showings? And for every 10 showings, are we getting 1 offer? And so if you look at the days on the market, let's say it's 30 days on the market, okay, and you need average days on the market for that neighborhood, and you need 10 showings to get 1 offer, you should be getting between 2 and 3 showings a week. And if you are not getting those 2 to 3 showings a week, that's telling you that you're overpriced, or you're not hitting right somewhere. And so you need to adjust. And always the answer is adjust the price.
Yep.
Okay. Almost always. Sometimes it might be, well, you need to fix this or fix that. But the reality of it is it's almost always price related. So we bring that price down to match, to get the showings up, so that we can know. So
I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Okay.
So when do you do your first price? Let's say, for an example, that you've got a listing.
Okay.
You cannot convince the sellers to list where you want to list, so you end up going a little high.
Okay.
How long do you, Brandon, wait to do your first price drop?
It depends on the days on market, and I'm usually trying to make the move within the first 7 to 14 days. And so basically, I make a deal with the client. I'll go, all right. Here's what I'll say is I'll go, listen, the average days on market is 30 days. That means we need 10 showings to 1 offer. So I set the rules up for the game. So we need 10 showings to 1 offer. I said, if we don't get 3 showings that first week, we're overpriced. We need to drop it.
I'm the exact same way.
Okay.
If I want a property to move in 2 weeks to 30 days, I am setting the expectation that we will do a price drop by this date if we don't have this many showings.
Now, I might call Monday and say, hey, listen, we did not get the showings that we wanted this week. We can drop it now, or you can give it another week if you feel like this was just a really bad week. And they'll go, this is almost exactly this. Let's give it another week. And then in a couple hours, they'll go, let's just go ahead and drop it.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say is that you want to make sure it's an appropriate price drop. You can't just go in there and drop it $1,000.
No.
Well, obviously it depends on the price. If you're at a $100,000 house, maybe you can. But in general, it needs to be a price drop that is going to make some sense. It can't just be $1,000 here or there.
Yeah.
You need to be dropping it so that it's getting into the place where you think it'll sell.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So yes, I try to take a more aggressive approach. And, here's the deal as a real estate agent. Are you going to mess this up? Yes. Are you going to be wrong? Yes. There have been times where I've said, you need to go ahead and drop it. And they decide to wait a week, and then we get a full price offer.
Yeah, it happens.
And it happens. And you don't have a crystal ball. So what I'm telling my clients is like, hey, listen, based on statistics, based on, what I know about real estate, this is what I think you should do, but it is your decision. But this is my recommendation.
Here's what I'll say about houses. At any given moment, there is someone out there that is willing to overpay for a house. It's the house for them.
Yeah.
They may not be looking for a house right now.
Mm-hmm.
There is someone out there. So you may miss the boat on like that example. Like somebody may come along with a full price offer that you didn't expect, and they're willing to overpay by 10 grand. But you have to, everything has to align for that to work. So your goal is to get the house sold for a fair market value in an appropriate amount of time. So if that buyer's not out there that's willing to overpay, it needs to be dropped until you get it sold.
Yeah. I want to tell you where I messed up last week, or where I gave incorrect advice. And it wasn't, the client wasn't mad at me, but he had a luxury property in Florida that he was selling, and it was up there, and he got an offer for like $100,000 over list price and said, hey, should I wait through the weekend? And I go, well, I said, statistically speaking, no, you should go ahead and take it, because you could lose that buyer. Or if you go through the weekend and you don't get a buyer, then they might come back with you at a lower price because you didn't sell it.
Yeah.
So you might have lost that client, or at least lost that price. I said, if you haven't got any other offers up to this point, it had been a week on the market. I said, go ahead and take it. I said, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. He goes, that's great advice. Thanks so much. He called me yesterday. He said, hey, after we got off the phone, we ended up getting 3 more offers in the next 4 hours, and we sold it for $400,000 more than that.
Yeah, I think it happened.
And hey, I was wrong. Okay, but I say that to be like, look, again, by all statistical evidence, it would have been on the market a week. He should have taken it, right? But it's just a sort of an anomaly. It came together.
You just never know.
Yeah.
You never know. Somebody's going to be out there that's searching for a house, and they could come along and pay more, but
right. So
they may not.
Yeah. So have confidence, and just realize that even 15 years in this, it's not perfect, right? And so there are always going to be variables there that you don't know about. So you never know.
There's millions of homes and billions of people, and only 4 put an offer on that house. So it's not like you're going to nail it every time.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Good point. All right. Just to recap, again, when you're pricing these houses, it's an art, not a science. We can use the data to come up with a pricing, and there are a lot of variables that have to come together. But again, it's the perception of value and the emotion that sells the home, not the data. So the data is just backing up the feeling. So make sure when you're looking at that you're objective. Don't get too in the weeds on specifics. You're not an appraiser. You're a real estate agent. So your job is to market and sell the home for as much as you can, not to source science and data to sell it. So
yeah,
All
and
right.
people buy these things on emotion. So
That's
it's
exactly
not
right.
always a perfect science.
All right. Anything else before we wrap up today?
Nope.
Guys, thank you so much. We'll be back with you next week. I'm excited. We've got a guest next week, so we'll excited to share that with you. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.